Oh, of course. Books are ideas, and ideas are powerful. When Cody's was bombed, we were the first victim of international terrorism in the United States. We were bombed because we were carrying satanic verses. We were. It's hard to believe, but we were, and that kind of indicates the kind of the subversive power of ideas, that people could feel that strongly. And it was interesting. It was really my great moment in book selling, because we went outside and they couldn't take the bomb out of the store, so they detonated it in the store, and we were watching it when it happened. And you know, we believed in ideas too, and we came back in right after the store had been bombed, and we all gathered around, and you know, I said, what do you want to do? You know, if we keep carrying this book, our lives are in danger. But you know, we believe in free speech, and you know, are we going to let people bully us? And I asked for a vote, and every single employee voted to keep carrying that book. They risked their lives.
When a person is facing a critical time in his or her life, where they've just lost a job or lost a relationship, or suffered some kind of unexpected setback, the power of an idea can be extraordinary. You know, people talk about books changing lives, and we hear that so frequently that it can sound a little bit like a put-on. But the truth is, when an individual is facing a really vulnerable position in his or her life, like facing the dissolution of a marriage or a problem with an addiction, a well-articulated idea in the form of a book really can be life-saving, sometimes even literally.
The title of my book is 29 Gifts: How a Month of Giving Can Change Your Life. It is a memoir about an experience I had when I was very ill, and I took a suggestion from a spiritual mentor to give away 29 gifts in 29 days as a way of beginning to think more positively and stop focusing on my illness. And it miraculously turned things around. It was such a profound shift that happened for me over these 29 days. When I began and decided to take this suggestion, I literally couldn't walk. I was in very bad shape with dealing with multiple sclerosis. I was severely depressed, totally broke. My marriage was on the rocks. Everything, I really thought that my life was over. And honestly, like I started the giving. By day 14, I was walking unassisted. By day 29, I went on a 1-mile hike with my husband, and I was working again by the end of the 29 days. So what I saw was such a total turnaround in my life that I was so inspired. I just had to share the story.
There's a mix of elements that any agent is looking for in an author. We would love them to be a celebrity. We would love them to be brilliant. We'd love them to be a great writer. It's various combinations of those that make any book project have good potential.
What I really look for is great clarity. I look for professionalism. I look for the ability to take passion and to take a great idea and execute it well. There are many, many great ideas floating around out there in all kinds of fields. Much rarer than great ideas is great execution. I want somebody who's going to put in the sweat equity, who has put in the sweat equity by the time they come to meet me, to create a book that is uniquely clear, basic, and enjoyable for the reader.
Everybody wants to write a book, and in fact, everybody has a book inside them. Everybody's life is a hero's journey. But the problem is how many people want to read about it. And publishing, they like to say that publishing is the marriage of art and commerce. But right now, times are tough, and if it's a marriage, it's a sadomasochistic marriage, and the dominant partner is the commerce.
Well, if they want to change the world, I think that writing can help. Writing a book can help, but maybe the first thing to do is develop what's called a platform of your own. In other words, no one's going to know about your book if you're completely unknown, even if it's a brilliant idea. So you develop what we call a platform, which really means an audience for your message. So I would say somebody who wants to change the world needs to develop that audience, and there are a lot of ways to do that. You don't have to go on Oprah. That is not the only way to develop a platform. I think the best ideas are, in this day and age when someone is unknown, is to use this amazing new device that we all, or world that we call the internet or the web, because it's the least expensive way to get your name and message out there. And in a way you can bypass some of the old traditional methods, which are television, radio, and print media. I don't mean those things are bad, they're great. But if you're an unknown, you can use the web in a way that never could have been done before. And that would mean by blogging, by setting up a website, that kind of thing.
It's important for writers to know how to self-publish today, because even though self-publishing used to be stigmatized in the traditional publishing world, today traditional publishing looks to the author to prove themselves, and that can mean self-publishing. It means social media skills, developing their platform. So self-publishing is no longer the stigma it used to be. It can actually be a path to a traditional publisher.
Think in terms of the quality of your product. There will always be a way to learn about how to build your platform. There will always be a way to learn how to use social media well, and those things are important. But the rarest commodity of all is quality. So I really want people to think in terms of the quality of what they're producing first. Identify writers and journalists whose work you admire, learn about their methods, and walk in the footsteps of those methods. I can't say enough how important sweat equity is to this field.
Just have to keep doing your work. I wrote from the time I was a child. I've written 3 novels that are baking on my hard drive. I have over 2 million words worth of memoir content that'll probably never see the light of day. And the fact that now, 20 years later, I have a book, you know. A writing career is something you dedicate yourself to because you have to express yourself. Like, you have a burning desire to share with the world.
Not to get published is a business decision. To write a book is a kind of a spiritual exercise, and they're quite different. So if I tell people, I struggled with this a long time, because I would get up there and just tell people they're not going to get published, forget it, you know. And everybody gave me bad grades at writers' conferences because I was just depressing. But the truth is that writing is a very courageous act. You know, you don't exactly know where you're going to end up. It's you know, I always like, I try to quote the last line of Albert Camus' masterpiece, The Myth of Sisyphus, and he said, "The struggle itself is enough to fill a man's heart." And I think that's the way people have to look at their writing.
The question I ask authors a lot is, why are you writing this book? If you're not going to change the world, why are you bothering? And I know that sounds grandiose, and that's not, though, just aimed at authors writing a work of practical nonfiction. That's true of anybody, and I ask that of every writer, because the effort required to write a book is so enormous, and the effort required to publicize a book is so enormous, that, frankly, I spend more of my time trying to talk people out of writing a book than into writing a book. In part because if I were able to dissuade them from writing just by me giving them a difficult time in a conversation, the odds are they wouldn't have succeeded. That if an author's not prepared to get calluses on their forehead from constantly pushing and pushing and pushing, the odds are so stacked, the burdens are so high, that they wouldn't succeed.
If you have an idea and you're passionate about it and you just, you do something every day to work towards it, eventually it will happen.
For someone who just feels compelled to write, I would recommend, and this may be the book that changed me, Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. It's an amazing book. I sold it. I sold thousands of copies at Cody's. It sent me to Hawaii many times, and I never read it until a couple of months ago, and it was a revelation. And one of the things she said is that writing changes you in the same way that having a baby changes you. It opens you up to the whole world. But publishing doesn't. Publishing doesn't make you rich. It doesn't make you famous. It does nothing like that. So people, if they do get published, that's great. But if you're writing because you have to write, don't expect it, and try to understand that it's the writing, as Albert Camus would say, that will fill your heart.